Hi all, welcome to the CA classroom. In today's lecture, we will be discussing the Sale of Goods Act 1930. Now, Sale of Goods Act 1930 is at your CA foundation level under business laws paper. Totally, there are 64 sections in this Sale of Goods Act. And an important thing to note over here is, earlier there was only one act called the Indian Contract Act, and the Sale of Goods Act was a part of the Indian Contract Act, which was removed separately to form the Indian Sale of Goods Act. The word Indian was removed in the year 1963. Now the act is called Sale of Goods Act 1930, applicable to whole of India, including Jammu and Kashmir. There is no more exception of not including Jammu and Kashmir, it is including Jammu and Kashmir. Now, why do we have a separate act for Sale of Goods Act? Now, take any business in the country or business in the world. From where do they earn money? They earn money from their sales, or also known as turnover. And the money you generate from your sales or turnover will be used to pay all your expenses. Then you will have net profit, all your EBITDA, taxes, etc. Now, if you don't have sales, there is no point in running a business. So, objective of every business is to grow by increasing your sales. Correct? Now, today if you see, there are various businesses. Their sales will be either sale of goods or sale of services, and services is so huge today that there are so many businesses that provide only services as their main income. But however, when you go back 150 years, 1930 and before that, the concept of service was almost non-existent. Very simple. Today, saloon, cutting your hair, a haircut is a service and a business on its own. Going to the parlor for beauty and all the packs, etc. is a service on its own. Such kind of a service was non-existent 150 years back. There was no concept of a parlor. Haircut used to happen, but it was not considered as a business itself. So service was almost non-existent 150 years back, and hence we only have Sale of Goods Act. You don't have any act to govern a contract of service. Contract of service will be governed under the Indian Contract Act. Contract of sale of goods will also be governed under Indian Contract Act. Then why do we have a separate act for this? Now, trade is very important. Every business buys and sells goods. As we discussed in Indian Contract Act introduction, why do we need a law? Whenever there is an issue, to contradict the issue, we have a law. Simple example. 100 years back, there was no law for traffic jam. There was no Motor Vehicles Act. Now, today, we have a Motor Vehicles Act which says zebra crossing, you have to stop if there's red signal. If you cross, you have to pay penalty. Why do we have a law? Because there is a problem. What is the problem? Increase in traffic. Because increase in vehicles, you have to regulate traffic. Therefore, we have Motor Vehicles Act. Same way, when trade and business increased, transactions kept increasing, GDP kept rising, the number of transactions between buyer and sellers was so high. So when business is increasing between buyers and sellers, seller is delivering the good, he is not receiving payment, buyer is making the payment, not receiving the goods. There are so many issues. To contradict all these issues and to have a governing mechanism to regulate all these issues, we have the Sale of Goods Act, which says what are all necessary for a contract of sale is governed in the Sale of Goods Act. It deals in issues like what is a good, who is a seller, who is a buyer, when is ownership transferred, if buyer is not making the payment, what happens, if seller is not delivering the goods on time, what happens. All these issues we will discuss in this act. Now let us proceed to the Unit 1 of Sale of Goods Act. Now let us understand a few important definitions in Sale of Goods Act. First important definition is seller. Who is a seller? Seller means any person who is selling goods or agrees to sell goods. So he is going to sell goods now or agreeing to sell goods in the future. Next is definition of buyer. Buyer is a person who is buying goods or agrees to buy the goods. Agrees to buy the goods means agreeing to buy the goods in the future. These two are simple definitions. Now let us see what is the definition of goods. Act is called Sale of Goods Act. So let us understand what is goods as per this act. Goods means every kind of movable property. First, goods means every kind of movable property. That means other than immovable property, everything else is a movable property. But actually when you see definition, they don't define anywhere what is a movable property. They only define what is an immovable property and everything else becomes a movable property. Now, goods means every kind of movable property other than actionable claim and money. So there are only two exceptions which is not goods. Actionable claim and money. What is money? The 500 rupees in circulation, the 2000 rupees in circulation, that is your money. And actionable claim. What do you mean by actionable claim? Let me give you a small example. Let's say X gave a loan to Y, unsecured loan to Y for let's say 10 lakhs. Now Y is not repaying the money from X. What will you do if I am X? I will file a case against Y in the court asking the court to sell his property or any of his assets to get my money of 10 lakhs back. Now I have a claim against this money in the court against Y. This is a small example of actionable claim. In depth about what is actionable claim, you will be learning in your CA intern and final. For now, this basic knowledge is enough. Basically, claim against the money. Lottery, you have claim against the lottery person. Next. It includes what? It includes stock and shares, growing crops, grass, things attached to or forming part of the land which are agreed to be severed before sale or under the contract of sale. Let us finish these before we get into some important concepts over here. It includes what? Stock and shares. Shares of every company. Basically, stock and shares, there is a small difference. But for now, understand it as shares. Shares of any company is also goods. Growing crops, grass. Growing crops, rice crop, wheat crop, all the plants near your house. And grass is also part of movable property. But trees, let's say a mango tree, is not a movable property and it is not a good. What is the reason? Things attached to or forming part of the land, let's say a mango tree is there, it is forming part of the land, which are agreed to be severed, that is agreed to be cut down before sale. So before sale, I am going to cut this down, sell the wood alone or under the contract of sale. So if there is no agreement to be severed, that is you are not intending to cut down the mango tree, then the mango tree will be an immovable property and not a movable property. Therefore, things attached to or forming part of the land. When will mango tree become a movable property? If such a mango tree which is forming part of the land, which is agreed to be severed, that is agreed to be cut before sale or under the contract of sale, you are going to cut it in the future. Only then it will become a good. Let me give you some more examples. Electricity. Is this movable property? Goodwill or trademark. Will all these electricity, goodwill, trademark be covered under goods in Sale of Goods Act? Think about it. For example, old currency, the old 500 and 1000 rupee notes, after demonetization lost its value. Now will this be goods? Answer is yes. When I say money, money currently in circulation is only excluded from definition. Old currency, people buy and sell old currency. Philately, stamp collection, currency collection, therefore this is also goods. Electricity, is it goods? Yes, you might not be able to physically see it, but you can feel its presence. If you get a shock, you will feel its presence. Anything which can be bought and sold will be a good. Goodwill and trademark also can be bought and sold, hence that will also be good covered under your Sale of Goods Act. So this is a definition of goods under the Sale of Goods Act. Let us proceed to the next concept. In the previous section, we understood the definition of what is goods under Sale of Goods Act. Now, in Sale of Goods Act, goods are classified into three buckets. Existing goods, future goods and contingent goods. Let us see what they are. First, what do you mean by contingent good? Contingent good means the seller will be able to sell the goods contingent upon some event happening. Let's say A promises to sell to B cricket bat of MS Dhoni. Now A can sell cricket bat of Dhoni to B only if he is able to buy it from C. The sale between A and B sale of good, MS Dhoni's bat from A to B is contingent upon A purchasing the same bat, let's say in an auction from C. This is an example of contingent good. What do you mean by future good? Future good means at the time of entering into the contract, good is not in existence. For example, let's say you are pre-ordering iPhone 13. iPhone 13, remember we are now in the year 2020. The latest iPhone available in the market is iPhone 12. I am saying the day iPhone 13 is released, next day I will sell you iPhone 13 for rupees 50,000 only. But you have to enter into contract with me today and pay me 50,000 when? In the year 2020. When will iPhone 13 or the next version be launched? Only in the year 2021. Correct? So, I am entering into a contract for a future good which is not even in existence today. Example of a future good. Another simpler example, let's say farmer X is entering into contract with one of his wholesalers for selling 1000 kgs of rice today, which he is going to cultivate after 3 months. Rice here is future good. Good is not in existence at the time of entering into the contract. Existing good means good is present and existing at the time of entering into the contract. Existing good is further classified. Existing good is further classified into specific goods, ascertained goods, and unascertained goods. What do you mean by specific good? Specifically this good. Example, you go to a pet shop, there are 5 dogs over there of 5 different breeds. You say, I want this dog A, Labrador breed, golden in color, I want that dog. Specifically you want to buy that specific dog, goods have been specifically identified. It cannot be replaced by any other dog, so it is a specific good. What do you mean by ascertained and unascertained goods? Let me give you a small example. Where do you buy vegetables? In most houses, your vegetable vendor or a fruit seller will come to your house with a basket. Let's say he comes with a basket of lot mixed vegetables. Let's say he has carrots and he has brinjal. Now, entire basket of carrot and brinjal is your unascertained goods. The bulk goods in bulk form is your unascertained goods. Now what you do? You will pick some carrots from this basket and keep it separately for yourself. That becomes your ascertained goods. So from bulk nature of goods, where you take some goods and keep it separately for a specific person, then the bulk of those goods is called unascertained goods. The goods which have been taken and kept separately, either at the time of entering into the contract or after entering into the contract, then such goods will be ascertained goods. So this is about types of goods in Sale of Goods Act. Let us proceed to the next concept. Now let us understand what do you mean by delivery of goods. Act defines delivery as voluntary transfer. Me on my own, voluntary transfer of possession. Possession means I have the possession of this marker. If I give it to you, you get the possession of it. So voluntarily I am transferring possession from one person to another person is known as delivery. There are 3 types of delivery: actual delivery, constructive delivery, and symbolic delivery. What do you mean by actual delivery? I am actually transferring this marker from my hands to your hand. Let's say I have a car, let's say I have I-20. I am giving you my car, I am driving, coming to your house, dropping the car in your house, giving you the car keys and leaving from there. Actual delivery of goods from one person to another person. What do you mean by symbolic delivery? An item of symbol which represents the goods or title to the goods is transferred without actual transfer of goods. Let's say A's car is parked in A's godown. A is transferring, selling his car to B, or just transferring. See, whenever delivery happens, not necessarily there has to be transfer of ownership. I can deliver just for the purpose of bailment, use for a few days and again give it back to me. So how delivery is happening here? Car is in the godown. I am leaving the car in the godown. A is going to B's house and giving the key to B, and is saying, go to the godown and take whenever you want. Take the car whenever you want. Then here, There is symbolic delivery of goods, transfer of key, an item which represents the title of the goods. Constructive delivery, what do you mean by this? Let's say there is a godown again storing 1000 kgs of rice. This rice was cultivated by A. And let's say Mr. Z is taking care of this rice in the godown as security person on behalf of A. Now, A and B enter into a contract where A has sold this 1000 kgs of rice, entire rice to B for a specific price. Now, earlier Z was taking care of this rice in the godown on behalf of A. Now he will take care of rice in the godown on behalf of B. Constructive delivery, delivery of goods without transferring the possession of goods, constructive delivery between the parties. So these are the three different types of delivery. Another example for symbolic delivery, let's say you are sending goods in train, whoever has the receipt, they can collect the goods. So when I transfer the receipt from one person to another person, he can collect the goods on behalf of the other person. This is the concept of delivery. Let us proceed to next concept. Now let us discuss what are the various elements under a contract of sale. Just like how under a contract we studied essential elements of a valid contract, 2 or more parties, offer and acceptance and all those points. Similar points over here, what is necessary for a contract of sale of good? What are the points? First, there should be 2 or more parties. Of course, there should be a buyer and there should be a seller. So minimum there should be 2 parties. The subject matter of the contract, most important, there can be contract for sale of immovable property, contract for anything. The reason why I am entering into contract of sale over here in Sale of Goods Act, the subject matter of the contract should be buying or selling of goods, and such kind of goods should be only movable goods. Price in money, the amount that is consideration that is to be paid. Price in money has to be paid. It is to be paid or it is to be promised that I will be paying it at a later date. However, the exception over here is it can be partly paid in money and it can be partly in kind. It can be partly in money and partly in kind, and can be partly promised and can be partly paid now. But the main essential element is price in money should be paid or should be promised to be paid. Transfer of property in goods. Very important. Transfer of property in goods. Ownership should be transferred. Such property is defined as general property or special property in goods. General property in goods is transferred, meaning ownership in goods is transferred from one person to another person. Special property is discussed more in pawner, pawnee, bailment and all. That is more of your CA inter-syllabus. Let's not get into that. Again, next essential element is such a contract of sale can be absolute or it can be conditional. Absolute means immediately property in goods is transferred from seller to buyer. It is a contract of sale. Conditional means ownership will be transferred or property in goods will be transferred upon some conditions being satisfied. What is contract of sale and agreement to sale difference we will see in the next section. Last one, all other essential elements of a valid contract. Competent to enter into a contract. All the other points, whatever we saw in Contract Act will be valid for a contract of sale under Sale of Goods Act. Let us proceed to the next concept. Let us understand the difference between sale and agreement to sale. What do you mean by sale? Sale is saying a property in the goods is transferred from the seller to the buyer immediately. When I use the words here, the property, we are referring to ownership. The ownership in the goods is transferred from the seller to buyer immediately. When you see agreement to sell, property in goods is not transferred immediately. It is transferred at a future date upon completion of certain conditions or upon happening of some events. Now, when will agreement to sell become sale? Agreement to sell will become a contract of sale. Will become a contract of sale when the property in the goods is transferred from seller to buyer or when the condition is completed in the future date. So what is important here is contract of sale. A contract of sale generally will be absolute or conditional. Whenever contract of sale is conditional, it becomes automatically agreement to sell because there is a condition before sale can be completed. Absolute means there is no condition. immediately property in the goods is transferred from seller to buyer. So what are few important differences between sale and agreement to sell? Transfer of property happens in case of sale immediately. In case of agreement to sell, it happens at a future date. Nature of contract. In Contract Act we studied nature of contract, executed contract, executory contract. Sale is an executed contract because ownership is transferred and payment might have been received or it have been received immediately. Agreement to sell happens at a future date, therefore it becomes a executory contract. Now, we saw types of goods. Types of goods were existing goods, future goods and contingent goods. When I enter into a contract of sale for a future good, will it be a contract of sale or agreement to sale? Any contract for a future good will always be agreement to sell because ownership will not be transferred immediately, it will be transferred only at a future date once the good is ready. Next, liability of parties. Let's say the goods got destroyed. Goods got destroyed. Who will take the liability? Who will bear the liability? In case of liability of parties when goods are destroyed, in case of sale, ownership has gone to the buyer, therefore buyer will take the liability. But in case of agreement to sell, ownership is still not transferred to the buyer, therefore in case of destruction of goods, the seller will bear the liability. Burden of risk. Let's say goods are getting lost. Now, I bought a good, my phone, I bought a mobile is lost. Who is responsible? Am I responsible or the seller responsible? I am only responsible. In case of sale, in case of burden of risk of loss of goods is with the buyer. However, in case of agreement to sell, since ownership is still not transferred, if goods are lost in the godown, then obviously the seller will only be responsible. Right of resale. Now, after I buy the good, in case of sale, after I buy the good, will the seller have the right to resell the goods? Absolutely not. But in case of agreement to sell, the seller, because ownership is still not transferred, he can resell it to somebody else. Nature of rights. In case of sale, it is jus in rem. In case of agreement to sell, it is jus in personam. What do you mean by this? Jus in rem means right against the world. When I purchase a good, let's say I bought a phone, I can do anything with it. I can break it, I can throw it, I can give it as gift to somebody else, I can give it to somebody for bailment. I have rights with the phone against the world. I can do anything with the phone belongs to me. Jus in personam means right against the specific person. Let's say you ordered a i20 car from Hyundai. Hyundai agreed to deliver this after 2 months. Now they are not delivering the car to you. The only right you have is right against Hyundai company to sue them for delivery. Right against the specific person. In this example, Hyundai. Remedies for breach. What do you mean by remedies for breach? Whenever there is a breach of contract, let's say I purchased the phone but I am not making the payment, then the seller can sue the buyer for breach of contract for the price. In case of agreement to sell, since price is still not paid, if there is a breach of contract, you can sue for damages. In Contract Act, we have seen so many examples where either of the parties, in case of an agreement to sell, breaches the contract, then the other party has to pay for damages. Let's say I agree to sell 10 kgs of rice. X agrees to sell 10 kgs of rice to Y. He does not deliver the goods upon time, agreement to sell. Then Y can sue X only for the loss he is going to suffer because of breach. He can claim the damages. This is the difference between sale and agreement to sell. Let us proceed to the next concept. Now let us understand the difference between sale and hire purchase and difference between sale and bailment. I will explain this with the help of small example. Let's say you go to the Hyundai showroom to buy a i20 car. Let's say it's costing 7 lakhs. Mr. Y is transferring entire 7 lakhs to Hyundai immediately and collecting the possession of the car and the ownership of the car and taking the car and going. This is a classic case of sale of goods. What do you mean by hire purchase? In hire purchase, Hyundai will transfer the possession of the car to Y immediately. However, the payment will not be made immediately. A small amount known as down payment, let's say out of 7 lakhs, 1 lakh might be paid now. The balance 6 lakhs in the form of EMI or known as installments will be paid monthly or quarterly or yearly based on the agreement from Y to Hyundai. EMI means equated monthly installments, they will be paying it monthly, but there will be different hire purchase where payment will be made quarterly, or very rarely you will find it yearly also, but generally all the installments will be paid on a monthly basis from the party to Hyundai. So what is the difference between sale and hire purchase? In sale, ownership was transferred immediately. I became the owner of the car, I can do anything with the car today. But in case of hire purchase, ownership will be transferred from Hyundai to Y only when the last installment, entire 7 lakhs along with interest, is paid from Y to Hyundai. Until then only Y has the right of possession. Now, if Y fails to make the payment, if fails to make the EMI, or is saying he is not having money, then Hyundai can take the possession of the car back from Y. Sale and bailment. Sale we have already explained what is over here. What do you mean by bailment? Let's say X. Now most of you, forget the example, most of you would have given pen to your friend for using for a day, or you would have asked you pen drive, you would have given your pen drive to your friend. That is the classic case of bailment, where let's say you gave your pen drive to your friend, he wanted to use it for a few days. He has to give it back to you. Obviously, yes, the person lending the good, I am lending my pen drive, lending my pen, or lending my car to my friend because he wants to use it for a week. The person lending is called a bailer. The person to whom he is lending is called the bailee. What is the responsibility of bailee? He has to take care of the goods as if it is own goods, and once the period, for whatever period is using, he has to return the goods back to the bailer. So there is only transfer of possession from bailer to bailee for a specific purpose. There is no consideration over here between bailer and bailee. This is about the concept of sale and hire purchase and sale and bailment. Let us proceed to the next concept. Now let us understand few miscellaneous concepts in the first unit. First, section 5. How is contract of sale made? What are the various possibilities? When contract of sale is made, there are two important other elements which are necessary. One is delivery and one is payment. At the time of entering into contract of sale, is delivery completed, is payment completed? Both delivery can happen now and payment also can happen now. If both are happening today, give me an example for this. An example for this, if both are happening now, let's say you go to the shop now, entering into a contract, buying a chocolate for 10 rupees, making the payment now, delivery is now, payment is also now. Delivery is now, but payment is later. Typical example, credit sale. In case of credit sale, delivery happens immediately, contract of sale is entered, but payment happens later. Next possibility, delivery is also later, payment is also later. What is the example for this? Let's say online you go to Flipkart, make an order. Today I am making an order for COD, cash on delivery order in Flipkart. I am entering into contract of sale with Flipkart, where today I am entering into contract of sale with Flipkart, but delivery is later, payment is also later. What is the last possible combination over here? We have finished both now, both later, now and later. Therefore, delivery is later, but payment is now. I pay today, but delivery will be later. For example, future goods. Let's say I am making pre-order today, I am entering into contract of sale now, making the payment now, but delivery will happen later. So these are the various possibilities how contract of sale can be made. Next, goods perishing, meaning goods are getting spoiled without the knowledge of the buyer and seller. Now, before making the contract itself, let's say X agreed to sell to Y 10 kgs of rice, and this rice was in the godown, but before making the contract itself, because of a fire, the rice got spoiled, goods got perished, or life got over. Both buyer and seller, X and Y, did not know about this. Then what happens? Contract will be void. Contract will be void. What happens if goods are perished before the sale, but after making agreement to sell? So X and Y have entered into an agreement for sale, but before the sale was completed, the goods got spoiled, goods were perished, without the knowledge, again without the knowledge of buyer and seller. Then such a contract can be avoided. Such an agreement can be avoided by the parties. Next, let us proceed to last few concepts in this unit. Now let us understand few more concepts in unit 1. ascertainment of price. Now when a contract is entered between two parties for sale of goods, what price, what is the consideration to be paid from one party to another? Generally it will be fixed in the contract. Between the parties they will decide what is the price. What if such price is not fixed in the contract? Then the buyer has to pay a reasonable price to the seller. Obviously there is no intention to sell goods for free, so you have to pay a reasonable price. Sometimes they will say price has to be fixed by third party, or known as agreement to sell at valuation, meaning third party will value the goods. Then in those cases where price is to be fixed by the third party, if third party is allowed to fix the price, then that price will be the price of the contract. If third party is not allowed to fix the price, or in some or the other way he is not able to, even though he has all the resources, he is not able to fix the price for this contract, then the contract will end up as void contract. But however, if either of the parties are preventing the third party from ascertaining price, from threat or any other way they are preventing him, then the party who is done as prevention, party at default, will be liable to pay the damages. However, let's say X has sold the goods to Y, Y has obtained the possession from X. Now a third party is being prevented or is not able to fix the price, then Y has to pay at least reasonable sum to X, or he has to at least return the goods back to the seller. This is the concept in Unit 1. These are the important concepts in Unit 1 of Sale of Goods Act. Thank you.